Welcome to Bobcat Sports Talk. I'm Jessica Carter here with Jay Riley and Trey Howard. Today's a little bit of casual Monday. The weather is beautiful, so why not be comfortable while we're doing today's Sports Talk video. But today's topic is, one of them is SEC dominance. Even after 7 straight national championships, the SEC is loaded again with Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas A&M. Jay, is there any team outside of the SEC that can take home the national title this year?
There is. Florida State, Jameis Winston, superstar, just coming out, freshman player, just unbelievable. Clemson, you got Taj Boyd, got great receivers out there, and Oregon. We keep mentioning these same 3 teams because they're the only teams I think that have a chance of beating the SEC.
Well, in the SEC, they're loaded as usual, like you said. It's 7 teams in the top 25, and that's, Alabama, Georgia, all those good teams. And then you have 4 in the top 10 alone. But I think the question is there any team that can stop the ACC? And yes, because these teams that are in the top 10, Oregon, Stanford, Clemson, Florida State, and Ohio State, they're really good. And they're the top of their conferences. And I think the SEC is as loaded and as dominant as it's been in the past. I think there are some beatable teams. All of them are beatable. I don't think there are any. Alabama is just invincible like they have been. I don't think LSU is just unstoppable. That defense isn't as good as it has been. Those teams, along with some other teams around the country, they can beat them in the national championship. And I don't think the SEC has been as formidable as they have been in the past. But I do think they're going to be one of those SEC teams in the national championship playing, and I do expect the SEC to win 8th straight national championship.
The ACC has stepped their game up this year.
They have.
I mean, they've got 5 different teams that look like really good teams, and that's not something you usually see. Like you said, there's 7 top 15, top 25 teams. There's 7 of them are from the SEC, which is not unheard of. 7 straight dominant championships for the SEC conference. So the ACC, I look for them to step their game up, and I think they could beat a Stanford or another team in the top 10.
I have to agree with you on that.
Our next topic is NFL sleepers. Everyone knows about the big boys in the NFL this year. The Broncos, Saints, the Seahawks have always been the talk in the league so far. One of the teams I think that they have not mentioned a lot are the Chiefs. I mean, the past 7 years they haven't been that good. Now they're 5-0 with a new coach, Andy Reid, and I really think that this year is their year, and no one's really gave them their spotlight. What do you think, Chiefs or?
When you talk about NFL sleepers, I think of those teams that aren't 5-0 like the Chiefs. The Chiefs aren't getting that recognition, but they are undefeated. I think they are being mentioned a little bit. But in the AFC, I have the Tennessee Titans. Even though they just lost to the Chiefs,
I'm a fan of the Tennessee Titans. So.
They still look very good. They're 3-2, and they're second to the Colts in the AFC West.
They lost Jake Locker.
They did. But Ryan Fitzpatrick stepped in, and he has done a manageable job. He hasn't lit the world on fire, but he hasn't done horrible either. They have this 9th-ranked defense in the NFL, and that's something you don't usually see from the Tennessee Titan defense. They're stepping it up, and I think they could possibly make the playoffs in the wild card. They are in the conference with the Colts, the Texans, who look, I don't know what's wrong with the Texans. They look like the Longhorns out there. And with the Jaguars, we don't have to mention the 0-5 Jaguars. But they're in that conference, and I think if they can keep this pace going, they're 3-2, they're playing good football. I think they can sneak in with a wild card win and get into the playoffs. And in the NFC, the Arizona Cardinals, also 3-2. They just beat a decent Carolina Panther team, 22-9. I'm sorry. They're 3-2. They have the number 2 rush defense. That's something you don't think about with that excellent secondary that they have. The Cardinals, they look good, but they're in NFC West, with the Seahawks and the 49ers. And I don't think they can make the playoffs, but it's not unheard of 3 teams out of the same conference making the playoffs. But it's going to be extremely hard for them to make it. But if they keep this pace going, they're a good team. I have them flying on the radar.
All right. Well, my NFL sleepers are the Colts and the Bengals. Andrew Luck, took it to the Seahawks yesterday. He just looked unstoppable. He looked like a younger version of Peyton Manning. It was just a great game to watch. And
are the Colts really a sleeper team, though? Like they're 4-1.
I mean, they are 4-1, but I would put them in that sleeper category because who are we hearing about every 5 seconds? The Broncos, the Patriots, until yesterday, and that's the reason that's why I mentioned the Bengals. The Bengals beat Tom Brady at his own game. They played excellent defense. Andy Dalton played an excellent game. AJ Green was a great wideout yesterday. Just had an all around defining game for the season is what I saw out of the Bengals.
I expect the Bengals to win that division, honestly. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers could stop them. They're awful right now.
Pittsburgh's terrible.
No one is
Those
really
terrible towels are there for a reason.
Nobody's really sleeping on those teams. I think they game plan for the Colts and Andrew Luck because they know he's going to bring. They game plan for Andy Dalton and AJ Green and that Bengals offense. These teams aren't at the top of the league, but they aren't at the bottom either. They're pretty good teams. I don't think anybody's sleeping on these guys.
Well, I agree with your picks on the people that you picked, but I still think of the Colts as a little bit of a sleeper because they haven't gotten the job done yet. They haven't been mentioned up there with Denver. Before this past week, the Patriots were undefeated, and who were we always hearing about? The Broncos and the Patriots. So that's why I say what I say.
I got you.
Very true. My favorite SEC game this past week was Mississippi State and LSU. LSU took the win 59-26. Great game, though. Halftime I thought that Mississippi State was going to pull through. Great stats for Mettenberger. He threw 340 yards, and Beckham had receivings 179 yards. It was at the very end, the score just went all the way up. But that was my favorite game this week for SEC. What about you, Trey?
My final word. We started the show talking about the SEC. And I want to ask you, what's wrong with the SEC defenses? I mean, the big, bad defenses of the SEC that nobody can score on. These games this season, check this out. Ole Miss and Vandy, 39-35. Georgia and South Carolina, 41-30. Bama and A&M, 49-42. Georgia and LSU, 44-41. These are high-scoring games. But I think people have started to figure out the formula to put points up on the SEC defenses. They have a strong quarterback, great running games, and a huge offensive line. That's everybody. It's not just Alabama. You look at Mettenberger, good quarterback, great running game, big offensive line. Texas A&M, great quarterback, great running game, big offensive line. So I think people are starting to wear down on that huge defense, and they're starting to find a way. And the spread option attack is starting to find a way to put more points up on these defenses in the SEC.
That's very true. What is your final word this week for Bobcats?
I'm going to talk about a 51-48 score, and I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. We're talking about the Cowboys versus the Broncos, and it was scary for the Broncos yesterday. It really was. They almost got beat, and, Romo is who I want to talk about. I want to talk about Tony Romo.
$55 million man.
Or as somebody on ESPN once called him, Tony Ono, because when he gets the ball with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, what does he do? He chokes. He's a choke artist. But I can't blame yesterday on him because he threw 5 touchdowns and 500 yards.
Broke the record, the Cowboy record.
Broke the Cowboy record. Made Troy Aikman hasn't even, broken 500 yards in a game. So I think that he ultimately, the game is on his shoulders, or at least that's what everyone thinks. But the game is ultimately on their defense, on the Cowboys' defense. The defense for the Cowboys just reeled yesterday.
Because Tony Romo gave them that lead. But what are you going to do? Peyton Manning comes down, scores a touchdown. And Tony Romo, you can't expect them to score every time.
Peyton Manning and Tony Romo was Tony Romo. That's the story of the take. Peyton Manning won the game 51-48. That's it.
That was a great game. I enjoyed that game yesterday. Next up, please don't forget about Jones playing this Saturday against Hines. They are ranked number 3 in the nation right now and first place in the South Division. So that's, I know, go Bobcats. So that's all our topics this week for Bobcat Sports Talk. Once again, thank you for joining us on Casual Monday. I'm Jessica Carter here with Trey Howard and Jay Riley.
Go Bobcats.